Mississippi, a double entry is made in the history of the U.S. Navy's submarine forces. Launched on Armed Forces Day, the USS Blueback is the Navy's last conventionally powered diesel-electric submarine. Blueback, a product of the Ingalls Shipbuilding Company, is the first submarine ever built on the Gulf Coast. The USS Blueback hits the Gulf water, a new member of an ever-growing submarine family.
The USS Skipjack, the first of a new generation of fighting ships, nearly outperforms the Fish during her pre-commissioning trial. Skipjack marks the union of two major developments in naval warfare: nuclear power and cigar-shaped hull form. She has the phenomenal endurance of Seawolf and Skate, and at the same time, extraordinary speed and maneuverability of Albacore. The Skipjack handles like an airplane. A single man can control the ship's lateral and vertical progress accurately and quickly. At her commissioning, Navy officials proclaim the Skipjack the world's fastest submarine. Root of the new sea power, the USS Skipjack is a principal undersea attack weapon, the deadliest submarine ever built.
The christening of the George Washington heralds a new era in sea warfare. This revolutionary vessel is the first fleet ballistic missile submarine capable of firing Polaris intermediate-range ballistic missiles. The George Washington shatters traditions as old as the submarine service. She is the first submarine to be named for a person, and she will be manned by two complete alternate crews. The George Washington will be mated with Polaris sometime in 1960. Scientists at the Atlantic Missile Range work diligently to complete the missile, which can strike from beneath the water at a distant enemy with a high degree of accuracy.
Wire mark.
Exercises keep our ships, planes, and men ready to meet any challenge. The intensive operations included realistic war games and close coordination with other units. Highly trained specialists put into practice the latest developments in equipment and techniques, as well as the latest naval offensive and defensive tactical doctrine. During Operation Big Deal, ships and planes of the United States 2nd and 6th Fleets joined forces for an extensive training exercise under the direction of Vice Admiral B.L. Austin, U.S. Navy. After tedious operating schedules, Liberty ports like Gibraltar are welcome relief. The exercises, which included more than 40 U.S. Navy ships, were coordinated with Allied forces Southern Europe to assure maximum training value from the NATO standpoint. The men and ships who took part in Operation Big Deal receive an enthusiastic welcome at Norfolk. Operation Big Deal, planned to increase the overall readiness of participating units, was a successful demonstration of the mobile power of the Navy in national defense.
The USS Independence, newest of the supercarriers and the most powerful ship ever built for the Navy, is commissioned at the New York Naval Shipyard. The Independence puts to sea for the first time. As she passes beneath the Brooklyn Bridge, she tips her giant mast. In home port at Norfolk, Virginia, a crew, which will eventually number 4,000, readies the Independence for an extended shakedown cruise in the Caribbean. Blueback is loaded with more than 100 jet aircraft capable of carrying atomic bombs to targets far beyond the range of earlier carrier-based planes. Shakedown operations prepare the Independence for fleet availability and her first cruise to the Mediterranean, where she will rotate with sister carriers, the Forrestal and Saratoga, in giving support to our foreign policy and strength to our allies. The USS Independence, a powerful influence in preventing conflict and in maintaining peace.
The USS Skate leaves its new London base for a midwinter mission, a surfacing at the North Pole, marking its second scientific voyage to the pole. In March, the Arctic is at its worst. With no open water, the Skate's surfacing is a daring whale's trick as it breaks through the ice. Unfriendly terrain and temperatures down to 40 degrees below zero greeted these northern navigators. In the half-light of red railroad flares, the crew of the Skate paused in their journey to carry out the last wish of late polar explorer Sir Hubert Wilkins by scattering his ashes at the pole. Commander Calvert, Skate's captain, conducted the ceremonies, which honored the man who pioneered in attempts to take submarines under the Arctic ice. In 12 days, Skate traveled over 3,000 miles under the ice, surfacing 10 times, once at the pole. A unique TV system was used to see the perpetually dark underside of the polar pack. Skate, never helpless due to ice, breaks all previous records for time and distance in polar under ice operations. Among the many awards awaiting the officers and men of the Skate, who proved that the Arctic can be a year-round operating base, was the presentation of a small bronze plaque bearing the words, "The sea is so great and my boat is so small."
Rear Admiral George Washington, the first American to set foot on the South Pole, prepares to leave his Antarctic command. Admiral Washington, commander of the Naval Support Force, Antarctica, has spent many years in both polar regions. 4 deep freeze operations and Navy participation in the International Geophysical Year studies were completed under his command. Back in Washington, where he is to head the Antarctic Projects Office, the Admiral is presented with the National Geographic magazine's Hubbard Award by Admiral Burke. Aboard the icebreaker Glacier, Rear Admiral Tyree relieves the polar explorer in official change of command ceremonies.
Aboard the cruiser USS Galveston, the deadly missile Talos is ready to make its first firing at sea. Supersonic Talos was designed to provide the Navy with a system of long-range, high-firepower defense against air attack. Traffic light test equipment signals when the weapon is ready for firing. Talos, a versatile anti-aircraft missile, will arm the USS Long Beach.
The Navy's Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Arleigh Burke, aboard the Naval Ordnance Test Station, China Lake, receives a briefing on the firing of a Sidewinder. Although not an aviator, the Admiral boarded the twin-seated F-3D and fired the air-to-air anti-aircraft missile, destroying the target. The members of Guided Missile Unit 61 presented the Admiral with their insignia as a reminder of the successful firing. Another interesting event in the busy schedule of the Navy's CNO.
Project Mercury's space team meets the press at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration in Washington, D.C. Admiral Burke and General McCall congratulate the 3 Navy and 1 Marine Corps selectees, the future astronauts. Lieutenant Colonel Glenn, Lieutenant Carpenter, Lieutenant Commander Sherraw and Shepard. Project Mercury, a stepping stone in the development of space exploration techniques.
Men go down to the sea in ships, but at Norfolk, Navy frogmen prepare for an extended stay at the bottom of a pool in the latest underwater endurance tests. What do you do underwater for 48 hours? The new record set by these frogmen. Some of the diversions were underwater checkers, using lead slugs, radio listening, and waterproof books. Or how about a note to those topside? Exercise is a lot less effort underwater. It's a regular 3 meals a day in this submerged existence, even if your food does come in squeeze bottles. When the frogmen emerged from the pool, they looked good, except for extremely white and deeply wrinkled hands and feet. They could have stayed down longer, but there are some comforts you can only get ashore.
U.S. mail delivery enters the missile age. Pony Express Missile Mail Project gets underway at Norfolk, Virginia, and Postmaster General Summerfield personally supervises the loading of the Regulus 1 mail carrier. 3,000 letters addressed to President Eisenhower and other top government officials make up this first mail shipment by missile. From the submarine USS Barbero, about 100 miles off the Atlantic coast, the Regulus 1 is launched. Chase planes guide the missile in its flight to Mayport Naval Air Station near Jacksonville, Florida. "22 minutes after the missile left the submarine, Postmaster Summerfield unloads the mail-laden Regulus and proclaims a new technique in mail delivery of far-reaching importance to the future of the U.S. mail service.
It's a perfect 3-point landing for the Navy's newest and the world's largest non-rigid airship as it sets down at Lakehurst, New Jersey. The ZPG-3W was made for the Navy by Goodyear and has been undergoing builder's test. Now under complete Navy control, the blimp, which needs 1.5 million cubic feet of helium to stay aloft, will be tested by the Airship Test and Development Center at Lakehurst. The airship's future mission, airborne early warning on the Atlantic radar barrier.
President Eisenhower authorizes the Navy flag, first official standard in the Navy's 184-year history. The new flag, which will be used in place of the traditional fouled anchor battalion flag, carries the Navy seal in a field of dark blue trimmed with gold, a bright symbol for the United States ships as they sail the world's oceans.